Manually tagging tables in Adobe Acrobat, multiple tables example. I have been working in this document trying to remediate this for accessibility. And what this means is I've been adding tags into what's known as the accessibility tags tree, where we can make sure that assistive technologies like screen readers are able to navigate the content. What we try to do when we're putting the tags in is make sure that the content is readable and understandable and navigable in a logical manner. So on this particular page, we have like a heading, which in this case, in this document, we're going to label this as a heading 2. If I open up the tags tree, there's a highlight on the SECT. This is a section tag. The section tag doesn't actually tell you anything to assistive technology. It's actually just kind of like a folder or a place that you can organize your tags into. So that's not going to pass on any information to assistive technology. But if at the left we open the little caret, that is going to open up all the tags that I had auto tagged this document. And this document had tagged everything as paragraph text. So this would just read kind of like one run-on sentence, when technically this page is a page of tables. And I say tables intentionally. This is actually many tables, though there is one header row at the top that actually technically is divided into two header rows that stretches across two columns of information that are built into tables. There's a major, sequence, and exemption. And each table is actually going to correspond to each of the, in this case, colleges that has been divided up. So visually, it's one table. But structurally and content-wise, if I were to tag this and I'm going to tag this, I actually am going to divide this up into several tags. And this can take a little bit extra effort, but it actually is going to help make information a little bit more clear. It is not the visual order of the page. This will actually read in a way that I believe is going to be a little bit more navigable. So in this case, I'm actually going to manually tag this set of tables. And what I'm going to use is the create tag from selection options and other things through Adobe in order to tag this in a way that I think is going to be a little bit more consumable for assistive technology. So I pulled out of the section the first row of information, which is that major sequence exempt, the two header areas. Looking at this information, we have one table for the College of Applied Science, otherwise known as CAST, one table for the College of Business, the table for the College of Education, the table for the College of Arts and Sciences, the Mennonite College of Nursing, and then our Wonsu Kim College of Fine Arts. So these are the tables that I am going to create manually in the tags tree in order to try to make things a little bit more navigable. I am going to come to the heading 2. I want to put my table directly below the heading 2. That is where the table goes. So I'm going to use my cursor and I'm going to select the heading 2 in the tags tree. I'm going to do a right click and I'm going to choose new tag. From the new tag dialog, I'm going to change the type and I'm going to change the type to a table. We need an outer table. So this table, I'm going to add a title to this one because this is going to help me keep my tables together. And I'm just going to use the acronym CAST because that is the acronym that we use for the College of Applied Science and Technology. And this will tell me that this table is going to be all about the CAST information. The title information, though, does not pass anything on to assistive technology, so I would not put anything in there that is important information that people should know. This is just for a reference point for me as I am tagging the tags tree. So now a table tag has appeared in the tags tree. And from here, I'm going to do another right click on the table this time. And I'm going to then in the menu choose new tag, then add the type, and I'm going to add a row. And so this is going to be a table row. I'm not going to add a title to it because I don't have to differentiate this at this point, and select OK. From here, notice that the table row appears directly below the table. Now, this is not in the table yet, and it's not associated with the table yet. So what I need to do is copy and paste or drag and drop the table row into the table. I'm going to do a right click on the table row, the TR tag. I'm going to select Cut from the menu, and then I'm going to come up to the table tag. I'm going to right click on the table tag, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to actually select Paste Child. This is going to paste the table row in the table, so that way the table row is part of the table. So when the assistive technology hits the table tag, it's going to know there's a table row in there. So here we go, Paste Child. Now there is a little caret that is to the left of table, and if I select the caret, the table row disappears. And if I select it again, the table row appears again. This means that the table row is associated with the table tag. Now, this one table row is not the only table rows that is in the first table. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to count the number of rows in each table. We're going to include a header row, which would be the major sequence exemption, and we are going to count all the rest of the table items, but we are not going to count the actual table heading. We'll come back in and add our header outside the table in a minute. So here we have our first table row. So then we need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 20 more TRs into here. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can do, again, the right click, new tag. Table row is already in the type since that was the last tag that I had chosen. I do not need to add a title, and I can select OK. Another thing I can do is I'm going to use the keyboard and do some keyboard commands. And I'm going to select the TR tag. I will do a right click using the mouse, and I'm going to hit the N key, which is a new tag key, and then I'm going to hit the Enter key. And I'm going to do this relatively quickly. All right, now I have, for the first table, enough rows that's going to take our data cells. And that will be all the information that gets cross-referenced, including our major sequence and exemption, which is actually out of each of the tables because it's one row at the top. So in this case, I am actually going to use the major sequence and exemption as my first row in the first table because the content is there. As we navigate through this, I am going to come over to the TR tag, and again, we're going to add a new tag. This time we need to add a data cell tag. So I will do a right click on the TR tag, the first one in under table. I'm going to do new tag, and this time I'm going to choose the type of table data cell. I don't need to add a title. I'm going to then click OK. So from here then, I see that again, the TD is directly under the TR, but it's not part of the TR. Table data cells need to be inside or a child of the table row. Currently, this one is a sibling or it's underneath the table row. So what we need to do is move. I showed earlier how to cut and paste. As a child, in this case, I am going to actually just drag and drop. So if I select the TD, the table data cell, and I hold my left click down, and I am going to drag this up until I see like an arrow that appears underneath the TR. Now, if we go all the way to the left, there's a row or an icon of a table row next to the TR tag. It is on the outside. Now, if I come a little bit more to the right, the arrow moves to the inside or between the icon and the TR. This means it is going to be a child of the TR. So if I let go of my cursor, now the table data cell, the TD tag, is inside the TR. If I select the little caret, the TD disappears. If I select it again, it reappears. Now, for each of these, we count how many columns are in each row. At this point, we have one for major, one for sequence, and one for exemption. So that would be 3 table data cells per row. Again, I'm going to do a right-click, new tag, table data cell for the type. Right-click, new tag, table data cell. I am going to do this then for all my TRs, just because I want to set this up before I start moving content in. All right, now I have a table full of table rows and data cells ready to add the content into. And because sometimes when you go and like highlight everything, content is going to like bunch up together. And between the major and the sequence and the exemption, there's a couple of dots that kind of are visual indication that they're associated. Those aren't something that we need assistive technologies to read out dot, 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 dot. So we're going to have the assistive technology hopefully ignore that. Now, to associate the content in the document to the tag in the table, we're going to use the Create Tag from Selection option. So in this case, I'm going to select the tag, and I'm going to make sure it turns like blue or gray. So it really is just a left click on the tag, so it highlights it in the tags tree. So right now, for the first table row, I have selected the TD tag. I'm going to come over to the document, and I'm going to select the word major. Once I've selected the text, I'm going to come back to the tags tree. It is turned a little bit gray, and I'm going to come and right-click on the same tag, and from the menu, I'm going to choose Create Tag from Selection. This creates a little content box. There's an icon with a little cardboard box and the word major. So this is telling me as the TD tag is for the major, and if I select that, there is a purple highlight that goes around the content. Now, if that purple highlight does not exist, you can do a right click and make sure Highlight Content in the menu is checked, because if you uncheck it, the highlight goes away. And so we're going to right click and check Highlight Content, and there is a purple box around the word major when I put my cursor on the TD tag. I'm going to do this on each of these. So I'm going to come to Sequence, Highlight, right click, Create Tag from Selection. Highlight, right click, Create Tag from Selection. Now, I had mentioned earlier that this table has a header row, and that would be the major, sequence, and exemption. And currently, that first row, we have set them up as table data cells. Now, because this technically is going to be a header row for this whole table, I'm actually going to change the TD cells. And to do that, I'm going to do a multi-select on all 3 of the tags. I'm going to do TD, I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to go to the last TD, and that highlights and selects all the tags in this row. I'm going to do a right click on any of the 3 highlighted tags, come down to Properties in the menu, select Properties, and I'm going to change the type to Table Header Cell. And then I will close out the Object Properties box, and this changes them to THs. This is going to tell assistive technology that as they navigate the rest of the cells in the document, each column is associated to its header cell. So where we have information on AGR, it's going to be able to read major before it, so we know what type of major it is associated with. The next thing we're going to do then is we're going to come down and we're going to associate all the content for the rest of the first table. And it's going to be the same steps. We're going to do a select the tag, we're going to highlight the content, and we're going to do a right click, Create Tag from Selection option from the menu. Now I've tagged the third row in the table, and in this case, because there isn't a space between the S and the first dot or period, unlike up in the AGR section, the multitude of periods, the dot, 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 has come with the CJS. Because they're periods, they're probably not going to say dot, dot, dot. We can check this out with a screen reader later. One of the other things we can do if we really don't want the dot, dot, dot to hear, if it does get announced by the assistive technology, tell the content that it's going to read something else without that. And to do that, you can do a right click on the content box, go to properties, and we can come to this actual text box and just say CJS. And it should then ignore the periods at that point, even though it's moved with the content box. Note to be very careful about that because that is overwriting the actual content here. This sometimes is a way that if the text comes out and the text recognition doesn't work very well, and some of the letters are skewed or the words are letters, numbers, because they couldn't tell the difference between the characters, this is also a way that you can help kind of boost the accessibility in the tags tree, but it is only going to be read to assistive technology that way. In this case, I will continue tagging the document. Now, something I have noticed, several of the majors actually span multiple sequences. And for this case, then, I'm actually looking at it and thinking it would be a good idea to turn each of these majors into another heading row. So in this case, I am going to go in and do another multi-select, but this time I'm going to select the TDs, but I'm going to hold the control key down because I'm going to select multiple things out of sequence. I'm just selecting the outer tag, the TD part, and I will select the two, and I will open up and select the TD of each of those. So I'm going to then do a right click. I'm going to do properties, and I'm going to change the type to a table header cell again. So as you're navigating through the table, if you feel comfortable and know the tag codes for each of the tags, instead of doing the right click properties, changing the type, you can actually double click on the tag to create a little text box and then change the tag manually within the tags tree. In this case, I'm changing the D to an H to make a table data cell into a table header cell. I'm going to select out of the text box, and it changes the tag. All right, now that my first table is tagged in the tags tree, I'm actually going to go back up and do what I had mentioned earlier. We have this actual hanging title that is between the visual header row and the first table. Because this is not an actual header cell or a data cell, it technically doesn't belong in the table. So I'm going to actually tag this out of the visual order, but make sure it is still within the tags tree. So in the logical order of my mind, it is going to go between the header 2, which is general education exemptions, and the table itself, because we want this to be the heading for the table. So what I'm going to do is I right click on the H2, and I'm going to select new tag. And from the type, I'm actually going to select that this is a heading 3 because that'll be the next level in the nested heading level. And I will select that. That's going to add the H3 tag, which is blank currently, directly below the H2 and before the table. And in this case, I will do my create tag from selection by selecting the H3, highlighting the header text, and coming back to the H3 and doing a right click, create tag from selection. And now as we arrow through our table or our document, we're going from our heading 2 to our heading 3 to the table itself, which is then having all the information in the table. In this particular document, there are several blank cells in the first column. To help screen readers decipher this, you could use the table editor in Adobe Acrobat's tags tree, but I find it overly complicated. Instead, you can use the Edit PDF tool to add the missing text to the document in the same color as the background. To do this, Choose the Edit PDF tool from the right side of the screen. This opens up text editor options for your PDF. You can do simple text edits within Adobe Acrobat. And you can add text. For example, if you go to the top toolbar and choose Add Text, and then come down to your document, and in the blank space, you can add a text box. So if I select the area, and I'm going to type in the TEC in this case, I'm going to add this for each missing cell. Now, so we don't change the visual aspect of the document, we're going to come back in and we're going to highlight each of the text, and we're going to come over to the right side of the screen and change the font color. So I'm going to choose the font color option, and then I'm going to choose, since it is a white background, I'm going to change it to a white. And I will do this for each. Back in the tags tree, if I go back to the TEC section, we can see that the first row of TEC is associated with all the text. If I open the next table row, we have a blank TH cell, a table data cell, and another table data cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the TH cell, come over to the blank space where we just added the white text. I typically will do a double click in the area. That way it'll select everything in the text box. Right click on the TH in the tags tree and do a create tag from selection. This will pull the text from that text box into the tags tree. And we will do the same for each. So now when we select our table, I've done 2 out of the 3 sections where we have created the hidden text that has the missing information. Another option we have is to leverage the actual text box in the Object Properties dialog. And to do this, go to the tag, the blank tag that you have, and do a right click, select Properties, and that opens the Object Properties box. And in this example, we have the actual text of FCS, which is the missing text from the table, in the actual text box. And then this will also tell Assistive Technologies that this tag is technically supposed to say FCS, and we can close. Now, if I were to take this document with a screen reader, this is what it would sound like.
Heading level 3, College of Applied Science and Technology, left there, at right there. Table with 3 columns, 21 row.
Now, screen reader users are allowed to use keyboard commands, so I'm going to use the Control, Alt, and the arrow keys to navigate through the College of Applied Science and Technology.
Add row 2. C, all program, column 2. CJS, all program, row 3. FCS, fashion design and merchandising, row 4.
Now, when we reach the FCS fashion design, if I go down one more to the food, nutrition, and dietetics, we will also hear FCS.
FCS, food, nutrition, and dietetics, row FCS. Development, family science, row FCS. Career design, row 7. FCS, teacher education, row 8. HSC, mental health, row 9. HCS, health information management, row 10. HCS, health promotion education, row 11.
And with the other option with HCS, it also reads correctly. So these are 2 options that you can do in order to make the table talk when there are blank cells that have actual information that should be passed on to Assistive Technology. I've also done the same with the other tables. So if I were to go down to the College of Education small table, the first table row has the THs, and in those THs, I have added an actual text of the header information, the major, the sequence, and the exception.